All right, everybody, I want to welcome you to Rock Talk. We're here at the Setting the Space outlet at the Kingston Collection, and it's the Plymouth Rock TV Octane Media Studios, and we have a wonderful, wonderful guest here today, and I'm really excited. But before we get started, as you know, I want to give you some awesome tips on what you can do as the weather's getting nicer, as the daylight savings time is increasing our opportunity to go out and have fun. Here is what's going on in your backyard, brought to you by Mosquito Hunters of the South Shore and the Ye Olde Pilgrim Wash and Well Laundromat, located in downtown Plymouth, America's hometown. Here are a few events that are taking place throughout New England. April 26th through April 28th, it is the New Bedford Food and Craft Beer Festival. So if you like food trucks, craft beer, this is the thing for you. It is an epic culinary extravaganza at the 8th New Bedford Food Truck Craft and Beer Festival. It's the annual tradition down there. You got to go check them out. And if you want more information, we'll have it right up here on our website. Here's something you will R2D2 want to do. It is the Robot Zoo. Can you believe it? At the Springfield Science Museum. Boy, this is a way for you to get out and see not just animals, or I don't think any animals at all. It's robots. And they have biomechanics of complex animal robots that you can discover how these animals work. This special exhibition reveals the magic of nature as a master engineer. All these people are way smarter than me, so I might even just go check them out, see if I can make friends with these folks. So you're gonna wanna check this out. This is gonna take place all through May 4th of 2025. That's out in Springfield. I know that doesn't feel like Massachusetts, but trust me, it is, it's out there. And then if you're into cars, yes, we are big time car people here at Plymouth Rock TV, and the British Motor Cars event is taking place at Bristol, Rhode Island on June 6th and 7th. It's going to kick off. This annual British Motor Cars event includes scenic tours around southern New England, hosting a block party in downtown Bristol, and a public car show in an effort to raise money for local charities through car show registrations, vendor booths. All sorts of local sponsors are going to be on hand to talk about their businesses. But if you like cars and you want to check this out, this is going to be an event that you're going to want to mark down in your calendar. There's going to be food, there's going to be music, there's going to be all sorts of things. And then finally, it's the 9th annual Revere Beach Kite Festival. They used to say as an insult, go fly a kite. But on this particular event, you're going to want to head up to Revere Beach. It's on May 10th, and it's right at the Marquis Memorial Bridge in Revere. Look, I like anything that flies. I'm a big drone guy. But going out and flying a kite, I tell you, this is going to be, the sky will be filled with these things. I love going down to Newport, Rhode Island and seeing all the kite enthusiasts coming out and having fun. So this is going to be something you're going to want to check out. So it is Rock Talk, and that's what we're about here, having a good time. And I want to invite or welcome Stephen Cole here. And this is going to be a dad joke, but I'm going to put the pressure on and turn you into a diamond, right? Has anybody ever said that to you?
No, that's new. That's new.
Wow, okay. I thought that was going to, my name's Chuck, right? So I've heard every nickname in the book. And my name rhymes with about 11 swears. Mm-hmm. And then you have Upchuck, you have all these other things. So I figured you had heard all of that before, but no?
No. I mean, is this a family broadcast?
Oh, well, right, whatever.
So I have been called
a fun family broadcast.
I've been called Coal Hole before, as to allude
right?
to perhaps.
Yep.
But no, I did have a cousin once who did gave me like a confirmation Bible.
Yeah.
And he wrote on the inside, and he spelled my name Coal.
Okay.
You would think at least a cousin would know.
Right.
But no, I've never had that. That's brilliant. I like that.
Yeah, so we'll crush you down into a diamond on this particular show.
Love it.
I'm like Barbara Walters, where I'll make you cry somehow throughout the show. Maybe out of boredom, but at least we'll have that tear, a close-up of a tear running down your face.
I've got pepper oil in my sleeve here just to make sure you achieve.
Well, you know what? We met you at the Rotary Luncheon a couple weeks ago, and you came to speak as the representative from the Plymouth Redevelopment Authority.
Actually, so there is a redevelopment authority, but
okay.
I actually work for a nonprofit called the Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. So tell me about what that position and what it is that you do day to day.
Sure. So the foundation is organized as a 501c3 nonprofit and as a private foundation. Basically, that means we have a relationship with the town and other government agencies, but we're mostly self-sustaining. We use our own private resources in order to fulfill our mission. Gotcha. There's 13 board members. I like to joke in this Easter season that Jesus got so much more done with just 12. But we have an amazing cast of 13
Yeah.
members, you know, all small business owners or leaders in the small business community, mostly based right here in Plymouth. We focus mostly on Plymouth because of the decommissioning. A lot of folks at home maybe don't realize that we're in the process right now of closing a nuclear power station that's been operating for about 50 some odd years. So that changes, of course, the economy for the area, but also
Right.
the culture. The primary economic impact for that facility was $500 million.
Right.
The payroll for that facility was $50 million, $55 million. So when you take $55 million in personal income out of an area that has an economic consequence, they were paying $14 million a year in income tax, or excuse me, in real estate tax to the local jurisdiction, to the town of Plymouth. So we've really had to make up a lot of that ground that we've lost. And one of the things that we're proud of doing is working with small businesses to get started. We're probably not going to have very much success recruiting the silver bullet to replace a $500 million economic impact. But we could have success attracting several other smaller nodes or smaller industries that would then make up for that, and probably even have more diversity in our economy, so that if any one of them does go away, we can still weather that, so to speak.
So that's a big sting, losing that kind of revenue for a town. And the people in the community obviously don't have the kind of time to be looking into all of the whys and ifs and what to be's and all that kind of stuff. And are you saying that there are some positive things in the works to sort of at least replace a segment of it and build towards some type of replacement altogether of that income revenue? I should say?
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
I think I believe personally in asset-based community and economic development. You know, ABCD. It's just super simple to remember. Asset-based community development. Plymouth has 37 miles of coastline. That makes us a really strong candidate to participate in the blue economy. Blue economy is really anything that relies on the ocean.
Right.
I think when you and I last spoke, we talked about how the ocean is the 7th largest economy in the world.
Wow,
It's
yeah.
not a political jurisdiction. No one manages the ocean. But as it is now, nations are responsible for extracting resources from the ocean that are worth the 7th largest economy in the world.
Wow.
So now put something else in perspective. Kelp. Is kelp and aquaculture a $14 billion industry, or is it a $200 billion industry? I've seen the pendulum swing on both sides. We really don't know, because a lot of this hasn't yet come to fruition. It hasn't come to market. So we have some small businesses in town that are actually looking at things like kelp and aquaculture. We also have some small businesses in town with high growth potential that are focused on food production and manufacturing, taking these raw resources, putting them into some kind of a production, adding value, and then getting them to the open market. I'll pause just one second, give you an example of an economy of scale here. So an oyster, we have a lot of oyster fishermen here in town who are growing these things organically, right? Someone on my board actually is responsible for managing 8 acres of oyster farm in Plymouth Bay. So it's not a small piece of real estate. An oyster wholesales for 53 cents, right? And then you go to the restaurant and you buy it for $3.50 each. And all they did was shuck it. They opened it up and put cocktail sauce on the side.
Right.
That's a hell of a markup, right? There's a young lady, and then what happens is essentially the shells go back into the trash. They have no value.
Right. Oh yeah, good point. Yeah.
One of the products or programs that we're working on for the foundation is we just finished our 4th year of the Children's Business Fair, which we would not have been able to get done if it wasn't for the amazing support and talent at the Plymouth Public Schools. Kelly Battinas, I want to mention Jen Mulvaney and Erica Manfredi by name, and certainly Superintendent Chris Campbell. I mean, a brilliant team who recognized the value in doing this right away. And we just had our 4th Children's Business Fair. One of the young ladies has been sourcing those oyster shells. She essentially pulls something from the trash that's worth nothing, and she paints on it and turns it into some kind of an art. And she did this during one of our business fairs. She continued doing it after the business fair. She sells each shell for $20.
Jeez.
So something that's alive will wholesale for 53 cents. She essentially takes the discard refuse from that product and then she turns it into something that's worth $20 a piece. And she's very successful with it.
Anybody find any pearls in there? I mean,
not that I've heard of, but there are some pearl manufacturers that I've heard of, not in our area. But you know, they implant the seed so that it kind of
what
grows.
You have to do, right? It tickles them and they grow
not
the
seed,
pearl.
Sand, isn't it? Sand. I think
Something
sand
like
gets
that,
into
right.
their gullet or something.
I wish I've swallowed a lot of sand. Hopefully, I would extricate some pearls.
Sure.
No shuck luck, such luck. The slip of the tongue actually worked there. No shuck luck.
Well, no chuck luck. I mean, that's got to be a thing.
And
right?
you know, I was when I met you, I was in the middle of a 7-day water fast.
Okay.
Right, and you brought up another business at that local fair that actually made me almost pass out. Where you were mentioning some kid with the Dorito bag and mixed in the taco. I almost passed out. I was like, that sounds so so wonderful and so sublime. I was, I lost all concentration for about 5 or 6 minutes after that. But another kind of clever business. Everybody has these ideas, and then it's the people who take it. Everyone says, "Oh, I could have thought of that," but then you didn't do anything about it.
Right.
You didn't take the initiative, take the next step to start a small business, which is a lot of work.
So that's a perfect way. So the reason we do this Children's Business Fair, is because we want to instill that sense of entrepreneurship, innovation, and small business into people while they're young. Because I've met many people as adults who have great ideas. Too many glass ceilings, too many anchors, they're too far into their career academically or otherwise. There's myriad reasons why some people will not pursue a great idea, even though they think it could make them money. They're scared. There's an innate fear to failure. If you're entrepreneurial, I mean, you're aware of failure, but you're not going to be submissive to it, right? And we want these kids, if you did something in 5th grade, you've already looked under the bed. There's no monster under there, Chuck, right?
Yeah, right.
So as an adult, if someone says, oh, that could be a business, they've already done it in 5th grade.
Yeah.
The only thing I did in 5th grade that I'm scared to do right now is skateboard. My center of gravity has significantly changed since 5th grade. It's the only thing I'm afraid of doing that I was able to do in 5th grade.
We'll have to hook you up. My partner was the 7th best skateboarder in the world with Tony Hawk.
No kidding.
So Ken Park, you can look him up, and he is about 58, 59 right now. You would think his center of gravity has shifted, but he claims he can drop right into the bowl and continue to. I never could skateboard, so that wasn't my thing. But we could turn this into sort of that motivational, entrepreneurial kind of show, because that's fear is, what does Michael Jordan say? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I think that for so many people out there, they're afraid. There's a lot of excuses, as they say, and I have been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I look back and I go, would I do that again with everything that I know? And I don't know the answer, but you're in it, and you're jumping out of the plane, you're figuring the parachute out on your way down. But I mean, it could be a glorious ride, and I am very impressed with a lot of those young people who are at least trying and going out and putting some ideas out there. And
so I mean, look, are we smarter than a 5th grader? You mentioned the Doritos, all right? In
Yeah,
2 hours, just for our viewing audience, so they understand the scale of what we're talking about. In just 2 hours of a business fair, this kid took a bag of Doritos, small bag of Doritos, crushed it up, added the accoutrement for tacos, right? Like ground beef and shredded lettuce, tomatoes, and such. And people were walking around eating right out of the bag. So it solved a couple of problems. Reduced the barrier to entry, and it was right around dinner time. So this kid had figured out that people are going to be hungry. He had a baked-in population of people who were going to buy his product. Last year, we don't have the numbers for this year's fair yet. It usually takes us a few months to get them from the parents. But we always ask them, did your student meet their goal? Did they sell out? Will they continue their business afterwards? How much money did they make after investors were paid back? And the school really baked this into the curriculum for the 5th grade. So they spend from September, whenever they get back, and we move the conference or the event till March, so they had longer runway to build their product out, understand unit price and sourcing, things like that. This kid, the Doritos kid, after he paid back his investors, he made $500 that night in just 2 hours.
I would give the advice I would give him, and maybe his parents would not want to hear this, but get a cart and then go plant yourself right out of any one of the cannabis places that are out there, because that's one of those kind of mungy. And you said it baked in a couple times. You got a slogan there. Maybe he's a little too young for something like that, but I mean, those kind of snacks. I mean, you see the creative. I remember going to a Brockton Rocks baseball game, and they had cheeseburgers in a jelly donut sliced in half. Have you ever seen something like that?
I had seen it, but I never tried it. No.
And I didn't eat it, but like you just go. And there was a line of people to get it, so you never know. I think people like the novelty of things like that. And it's sort of fun.
Those types of things, though, I feel like you can only rely on a customer one time. They'll say they had it, just to say they had it.
Maybe it's good, though.
I mean, it is probably good, but I'm not going to have it.
Have you ever had peanut butter on a hot dog?
No.
Glorious.
No, really interesting.
And I love hot dogs, but I would only eat them once or twice a year, so I don't like to risk getting too diverse away. But it's like when you go to a fancy place where it's chicken or bacon with like a peanut sauce, so it's great. And they were something popular in the 50s, but
I am shocked by this. But since we're talking about food, this is really appropriate for one of the areas of entrepreneurship where we see high growth potential here in Plymouth, and it dovetails nicely with the business fair. Ever since year one, we saw a number of students who were interested in preparing some kind of a food product. So we got the Board of Health involved, and our health inspector, health agent Karen Keene, recorded recorded a video for these students to educate them about ServSafe, but also packaging. We've got the kids from Plymouth South High School involved so they could educate them from the marketing and business program, educate these kids about sales pitches, how to market their business, what types of designs on the packaging that really might entice people to your product. So I'm actually really encouraged that, we have a great restaurant scene in town. We have about, I think it's 18,000 restaurant seats. That doesn't include the McDonald's and the Dunkin' Donuts. That's right. Organic seats that you can come out and sit down in Plymouth. 18,000 of these things. Natural attrition happens. It comes for us all. I mean, I was initially concerned that when our restaurateurs retire, that we may have a backlog or we have some vacancies in the downtown. I'm no longer concerned about that because by the time these folks start to retire or sell their business, these fifth graders will be all the way through high school and probably looking at college, military, whatever they're going to do, starting their own business, finding a job. I have full faith that our homegrown population is going to be able to infill any vacancies we have based on the amount of interest we have in food. Let me tell you about food science, because we have this great business down at the airport. They're called Wellness Croft. Tim O'Neill and his wife Dina run this place. It's phenomenal, high growth potential. They're talking Industry 4.0. I mean, you're going to have robots in their facility when they're done building this thing out. And it's going to be able to actually assess using AI whether or not a fruit product or a food product is ripe enough. So if it's an apple and it's not ripe enough, it gets smacked off the belt and goes to applesauce. If it's ripe enough, it comes down the conveyor and gets included in their product. This gives them the opportunity to pay their employees much higher wages now because they're not worrying about people doing mundane stuff like looking at an apple to determine its ripeness. So that's Wellness Croft. We also have Boxford Foods, Boxford Baking up at the Industrial Park. They're another amazing food production manufacturing company. I'm really encouraged that we're starting to see manufacturing organically arise now in Plymouth, and it's focusing on things like food. Using our blue economy and our coastline, we can bridge that gap between the raw, ugly materials of things like kelp, oysters, skate, monkfish, all that stuff that people typically don't eat. We can use our food production manufacturers to actually help bring some of these products to market, make them more viable, educate consumers to more sustainable options, but also hopefully educate restaurateurs that consumers are ready for options that typically haven't appeared on their menu before.
I mean, food is an obvious indicator of not just nutrition and sustenance. It's also something that is a roadmap of history, too, because last year, right around this time, actually, I think exactly this time, I was in Croatia, and we were doing all sorts of pieces on the wineries and the local food. And generally speaking, when you're in a community, their signature dish will be something that the poor people ate and that they ate all the time. And like the corned beef and cabbage in Ireland was something that was pretty cheap, boiled dinners. And I'm Polish, so we have all sorts of cabbage kind of dishes. And the bugs were the lobsters of here. And it is like music and like art, food is the indicator of our culture. And yesterday, just as a matter of fact, my wife's she's a teacher here in Plymouth and on school break, and kind of try to do a day that we would go and have some fun. And we're going down Main Street, and I'm looking at all the restaurants, and I'm like, I lived here my whole life. I'm like, never been there, never been there. Where did that come from? And it was like too many choices to pick from. And I always say that when you're coming to this area from out of town, I almost envy people because I'm like, you take it for granted when you live here, but like, you just finding yourself wandering around a new town, you say, oh, this is what a cool place. Driving, and we ended up at Dillon's because we hadn't been there, and everyone, speaks very highly of it. But so many different choices: Thai food, Korean food, Mexican food, seafood. I mean, the list goes on and on. It was stunning.
Oh, there's no shortage of options.
Right.
I don't even think we're oversaturated yet. I mean, we have so much opportunity. We don't have a Lebanese place. I would love Lebanese.
Right. Well, there's an Indian food place that's
opening up
Yeah.
downtown. Yep, that's right. I'd say so. The thing about downtown Plymouth is that it's only 3% vacancy. So there's no real room for more people to move in.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'd like to see more of was more food trucks, frankly. One of the things that is a little bit of a quirk about Plymouth is Mondays and Tuesdays, especially before 4 o'clock, not a lot of restaurants are open. That's their weekends. We're still very much a blue-collar, homegrown town. A lot of the restaurateurs and retailers, they work in their shops, and they work on their busiest days, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Mondays and Tuesdays are essentially their weekends. I'd like to see a more robust food truck industry happening here in town. In a second, I'll talk a little bit about what I think the foundation can do to help support that. But I think that the food trucks can help supplement that experience. If I come into town on a Monday or a Tuesday morning, grab a nice breakfast at Local Roots or something like that, I'm going to need a couple hours to walk around, really experience some of that stuff, and then I'm going to get hungry again. And if I have a really cool place that I can go for lunch and grab something quick and delicious and inexpensive, like at a food truck, you're going to keep me here at least until those restaurants open at 4, and I'm going to start drinking right around then.
Right, right.
So we need to do more, I think, to create dwell time and to supplement the brick and mortar built infrastructure in Plymouth, because the fact is we don't have a lot of old buildings that are vacant.
Right.
We're pretty much at capacity. One of the things that I think the foundation can do to support the food truck industry and kind of supplement that food scene is we can work on a commercial shared kitchen. You need to have a commercial kitchen in order to run a food. You can't run it out of your house. You have to have a commercial kitchen to support your truck. A number of restaurants in town, including Dillon's, they have a food truck. They're able to use their commercial kitchen at the brick and mortar to support their food truck. And that's an opportunity for them to gain geographic diversity. We could do the same thing for someone who's just doing a food truck. They don't need the brick and mortar. And now we treat the whole South Shore, South Coast as part of their territory, their region. The other thing is, you know, food truck parking in a parking spot on Court Street or Main Street. I mean, the town charges $2.50 or whatever it is to park there for an hour, okay? A food truck parking there for a few hours, the town can make a few $1,000s on that by selling a special license that allows them to do that.
Sure, yeah.
So there's a revenue stream, there's an economic impact, it's a business opportunity for someone who doesn't have access to a brick and mortar, and it creates equity. I mean, this is equity for a small business owner and entrepreneur. I think the thing, though, that people sometimes forget is that a small business owner and an entrepreneur and an innovator don't necessarily mean the same thing. They're not necessarily the same person. They can be, but I think that an entrepreneur is really just someone who disrupts. I don't want to diminish what they do, but that's essentially the core definition of an entrepreneur. Someone who disrupts a market or a system, and not necessarily for the better, right? We know plenty of entrepreneurs who have gone to prison recently for making claims about, you know, blood testing. Disruptor, not necessarily positive, and not necessarily an innovator because she achieved nothing from doing so. Where I'm talking about, though, is small business owners who are able to launch a business as an entrepreneur, shift their focus to small business management, and then as the demands or the markets dictate, innovate your small business so that you can add something different and fresh to remain viable and relevant.
I think what needs to happen in Plymouth, if you've got your suggestion box ready to
go,
dip some suggestions in there, is number one, I would say the big negative of our day out yesterday was getting blasted with a $30 parking ticket when I got back to our car.
Oh, you got to pay attention. Yep.
And a few minutes past and I, quite frankly, I thought, I was like, oh, I'll be nice and put some money in here. I thought it didn't start until Memorial Day, so I didn't know. But every car along the waterfront, bang, bang, bang. And I would say that in that situation, maybe you're not the parking lot enforcer here, but I would say that it does dissuade people from going downtown when you have that kind of frustration, especially when things get busy and you can't find anywhere to park. And I know during COVID, they had a lot of the outdoor seating, which then limited the parking on Main Street. And, you know, that can be frustrating, which makes the businesses unreachable. But the other aspect
can I jump in though, Chuck?
Sure, yeah.
I want to address that because we have a really good working relationship with Park Plymouth, also known as PGDC, Plymouth Growth and Development Corporation. Desmond Egan is their executive director.
And thank you for wiping that ticket clean, whoever I know that you're going to get to that, and
we'll get right on it.
Yeah.
But the thing I want to mention, Desmond just educated me to this the other day. Plymouth actually gives parkers a 5-minute grace. So I'm not saying you were within 5 minutes. What happens though, when your meter runs out, it starts counting backwards. And when it gets to 5 minutes, that's when you're eligible for the ticket.
Okay.
So Plymouth does give a 5-minute grace period. I don't know when they started this, but this is something that's new and that they want to make sure people understand. The other thing they'll do is they'll chalk your tire. So they try to play fair. If they see that you're expired, they'll come back and they'll chalk the tire. You also have a 2 or 4 hour limitation. So we want to make sure that downtown is accessible to everyone. I will say though, of all the downtowns, of all the places I've ever worked, Plymouth doesn't have a parking problem. I think psychologically New Englanders, I'll cast it to a region, but I can certainly say Massachusetts. New Englanders, I think, want to be able to park where they can see their car from where they're going.
Right.
So,
Right.
for example, I was actually at Tavern on the Wharf yesterday. I normally might park in the large lot on the other side, but I said, you know, I'm going to spin down where the wharf is and see if there's a parking spot there. I was able to see my car the entire time I was at lunch. Huge threat relief for me to know that my car was safe and within my line of sight.
Right. Yeah.
So I think there's a psychological barrier that New Englanders have, but I will say I have to give some credit to Park Plymouth. I think they did the right thing putting in a policy that gives us a 5-minute grace. If we're more than 5 minutes, then we have some explaining to do to ourselves.
Well, you would think that all of that explanation would make me feel better, and it didn't.
I'm sure it didn't.
So, you know, either way, you know, I welcome the information and go from there. And I know they have the apps and all that stuff, and we should have thought of it. We just didn't even think it was time, that time of year. Anyway, nevertheless.
Hey, look, that comes down to messaging and communication,
Right.
and that's something that we can certainly pass along. But I will say, too, I was at East Bay Grill last week when they started their ticketing and their meter enforcement. I have to say, the wait staff was phenomenal. They came over and they took the initiative to educate their patrons that paid parking had started.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay, that's
so
pretty good.
maybe it's just a matter of some of the restaurants and retailers maybe doing some of the same thing just to educate their consumers.
And I don't want to make this about parking, but even still, like I was driving my mother to the airport the other day, and I was mentioning about the toll, and she's like, "Well, I don't see the toll booth," and I'm like, "Well, it happens automatically.
Yeah,
maybe you just pull in." And then you get a bill from the registry, 75 whatever. But I know the money is made from the tickets and that sort of. This isn't about parking, so we'll move on to the next subject.
No, it's not. But it's important to bring up because I mean, especially.
And every town faces this, and I don't mean it to be.
And if you haven't been to Plymouth before, you know there's some things you have to be aware of.
Right.
So these are great cautionary information. Whenever I go to a new place, Chuck, I always go on the Reddit for that place. You know, like when I was in Honolulu, I went on the Honolulu Reddit page. A lot of really good, colloquial kind of information that comes from the residents from a place like that.
Yeah.
Generally, I don't get that same level of information from a Facebook page, but it's good to know these things so that when you come into a place, you can be aware.
I'm big into media and controlling how much feedback the public gives because I think you can get a misinformed viewpoint of an area because of people who complain about everything.
Sure.
And their first instinct is to go on and complain about their lobster roll. And they didn't like lobster to begin with, and they ate something that they didn't like, and then they go out there. But even though I'm wise enough to not take those comments seriously, I'll still read something and think twice about going into a place. Even though in my mind I go, this person's a Karen or a whatever the male version of the Karen is, but
Ken, do they call them Kens?
Is it a Ken?
I think it's a Ken.
I don't know. But I think that sometimes we give a little bit too much leeway to the public to be able to have them provide expert opinions and reviews on things when
hey man, if you can build an entire religion on word of mouth, I absolutely believe that you can build a negative perception of someone's lobster rolls by word of mouth.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So part two of that was the thing that I think can be improved is that there is still a fractured vantage point from businesses where yes, there's the chambers and there's the associations and stuff, but everybody, like we're in the Kingston collection in the mall, and I've really struggled in trying to bring other people together and businesses to be like, hey, look, first thing is we got to get people into the whole complex. Then, if you have a good product, they're going to find you. And I think that everybody in Plymouth needs to come together, but there were so many, and I don't know how long your experience is here in Plymouth, but like Plymouth 400 and Plymouth Parade committees and Plymouth downtown Main Street committees and everybody, there was very fractured. And my first reaction even to the idea about the food trucks, which is a great idea, like I think that would be wonderful, is that some of the restaurants would put up a stink because that's going to take people away from their dining rooms. But to make the Plymouth experience so good and have everybody continually come and word of mouth, somebody goes home after a extended stay here in Plymouth and says, I'm going to make this an annual tradition. I'm going to tell my friends and family. And that kind of thing, I think, is for the greater good. It's making the garden more fertilized so everybody wins. You know, that would be my comment, and it's, I guess, not even a question that you have to address, but I think that a lot of businesses need to help one another out, ultimately. But it's natural that they would be selfish of their own self-interest, you know?
Sure. You know, I think so I guess to answer it, not that you ask a question, but to contribute to that, I view downtowns as kind of like a Got Milk campaign. It's not about a particular retailer or a particular restaurant. It's about the product or the experience, which is, of course, the downtown. One of the things I have to say about other tourism-centric economies, like, say, Provincetown or even Salem, They have a business guild. There's a business association. That business association is largely responsible for creating themed weeks. P-Town is certainly famous for their themed weeks. Plymouth doesn't have that, and we certainly could. And with themed weeks, we could help diversify what people think of as Plymouth. Plymouth Rocks TV, right? That's obviously one of our biggest icons is Plymouth Rock. Most people, they profess disappointment when they see it the first time. But the idea is, that's our first piece of propaganda. That's why that rock means so much to me, right? That thing has the crack in it because it was carted around on an actual cart to raise awareness and money for the Revolutionary War. And then the story was told around this thing. And then it became lore, and now we're America's hometown. I have that's not a failure. I mean, I regret that people are disappointed by the rock. But again, when you look at it through a different lens,
it's Plymouth Rock. It's not Plymouth Rock Motion Odyssey movie ride.
Right.
It's not. It's exactly what it's.
If you're disappointed, you've expected too much from a rock.
Right. Exactly.
But at least you have a perception that we have this asset. Let's build some kind of tourism around this asset. And of course, why is the rock even famous? It's because of the European settlers who came here, right? So we have the descendants. There's 35 million Americans who claim some kind of descendancy from the first ship, right? But we have so much more. I mentioned 37 miles of coastline. You know what I mean? So kicking open the doors a little bit and talking about Plymouth in new ways and offering new experiences that create that dwell time so people stay longer throughout the day. There's no mysticism there. I mean, the formula is already there. One of the things I'm very proud of that the foundation has worked on the board of directors and myself, is we helped create what's called the Downtown Waterfront District. This is our version of the business association. They named it themselves. They run it themselves. There was a very successful New Orleans and Jazz program or event at the Center for the Arts. And one of the things I want to point out is you're right. There are these kind of polycentric areas where decisions are being made. I don't see them as being fractured because they were never cohesive in the first place. They're not splintered and fractured. They're organic things that happened on their own because people were interested. And what has to happen now, Chuck, is now we have to coalesce those efforts. So they don't appear fractured. They don't appear to be so polycentric. We have to have someone slinging the arrows to mix analogies. We need someone coordinating where to sling all these arrows. I see each of those things as being arrows in a quiver. They're wonderful assets that we have. We have First Fridays that's coming up. That's a beautiful art. Every first Friday of every month in the summer, a number of restaurants and retailers get involved to encourage people to come downtown. So my hope is that in working more closely with C Plymouth, our local tourism board, I'm now on the board, and I'm proud to say that I was elected chair recently by my peers and colleagues.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I'm hopeful that this kind of brings together, coalesces the conversation around economic development and tourism, which is the backbone of our economy currently.
Yeah. There's so much to offer in Plymouth, and I think that what we try to do here at Plymouth Rock TV, ironically, we're not a Plymouth quote-unquote channel, where we use the Plymouth Rock as a symbol of the introduction, that first stepping stone into a new world kind of thing from people disruptors. The pilgrims that came over that were just sick and tired of where they were and wanted to change things up and create a utopian society for themselves. And they came here, and that was sort of our version of disruptors, of changing the way traditional media was going. And as technology and digital was changing, it was just the perfect opportunity for us. But my heart is in New England, of this being such an incredible region. And it is amazing every single year. You see the criticisms about New England is the weather, right? Sure. But that brings us the skiing and the foliage and the springtime and the great summers. And fortunately, knock on wood, we don't have those kind of massive threats of hurricanes and wildfires that people in California have to deal with, and Hawaii and all these places. And then on the other side too, yes, it gets hot in the summer, but try being down in where our partners are in St. Petersburg, Florida. I mean, you're done after May. And all these other parts of we have almost the perfect climate for year-round tourism. Yes, it's going to be clammy in January and February, but hey, you know what? It's still a great opportunity to see things. And I think it's just a great area for us to thrive in, because we don't have that constant threat of weather being a deterrent, as they say. I just love it. I think that there's so much to do. And
and look, if you really want to take a macro perspective to what you can do, come to Plymouth, right? Even fly into Boston, spend a day in Boston, come down to Plymouth, spend a few days in Plymouth. For those dark, dreary, cold, blustery days that happen even sometimes in the summer, go to Salem. I mean, like there's some places that are really well situated for bad weather. Salem's absolutely one of those places. In fact, I think it enhances more of your experience if you're into the spooky, ooky stuff, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I lived in Salem prior to moving back here. I'm a boomerang. So I grew up on Cape Cod. I graduated high school in Cape Cod, went to Western Mass for my undergrad, went to Hartford for my master's degree at Trinity College. And frankly, by the time I was done working for mayors, I said to myself, where do I really want to be? I hadn't been an adult where I came from, though. So I really wanted to come back and experience this area as an adult. And as a kid, I get it. And if you can't drive, if you can't get a job, it kind of weighs on you a little bit. You have a certain anxiety to get the hell out of a place like that. As an adult, though, I mean, the quality of life here is it's superlative compared to any place else I've ever lived or worked. And you know what? If you have a sense of adventure and you're willing to drive more than 20 miles, you can do all of those things that you just discussed. And that's why I think our tourism is it's stable. Even during COVID, like we didn't have a lot of drop or businesses closed during COVID. I mean, they adapted. They were innovators. They changed how they did things, and they had outdoor dining. They had the partitions up and things like that, and it worked. I think we actually had more businesses open in the downtown during COVID than we had close. I can recall 2 closing. One was actually a business relationship with someone in Boston that had to ultimately, it wasn't a local economy thing at all. And we had 3 businesses that I can recall open during the pandemic. And there's 2 of them are still going. One of them, by the way, is a shout out to Keegan Creations, one of the best bakeries a local community can have.
My first experience there was Sunday or Saturday morning. We went to there's one in Kingston.
There's one in Kingston, yep.
And we just walked in because we were trying to kill some time and tried a couple of the pastries. And I was upset that I did it because then I'm like, now it's on my mind, and every time I drive by, it's going to be that temptation that I wish I did. I just wish I hated pastries. that would be the thing, but
no, their product is amazing.
So good.
That artisan stuff is what adds so much to the vibrancy of a downtown and the tourism experience. So yeah, we have the food scene, we have the natural landscapes, we have the history. I think what excites me most though about Plymouth is we just celebrated our 400th celebration, right? The founding of Plymouth. I'm way more excited about the next 400 years. This place has a lot of really great opportunity. And when you think of other cities in Massachusetts or throughout New England, every other city is a post-industrial city, right? They have big industrial relics that are left behind. Sometimes they're adaptable to be reused. Most times they're not. They need to be demolished. The dirt has to be pulled out. You have to have new dirt brought in because the old dirt was so dirty. That's challenging. It's expensive. It's a long, slow burn for cities to recover from that industrial relic.
Yeah.
The most industry that I think Plymouth really ever had was mostly up at Cordage Park. We had some down on the waterfront that's mostly been redeveloped and cleaned up. But for the most part, Plymouth is the only city in New England that's not post-industrial. We're the only city that's post-nuclear. And that gives me a lot of optimism when I think about what that means for us. What that means for us is a focus on things like AI and quantum, robotics. I mentioned aquaculture because, frankly, that's one of the highest, best ways to attract food with high protein value with very little impact on the natural environment. So even if you're growing kelp, there's carbon sequestration, right? There's ecosystems that can develop in a kelp forest.
Right.
That also helps contribute to things like water recreation, like snorkeling and scuba diving.
Right.
So I really genuinely see that as a post-nuclear city, and we're 65,000 people, a rose by any other name is still a rose. You can call us a town, but we're 65,000 people. We're the 16th most populous city in Massachusetts.
It's big by square miles, too.
Yeah, it is.
It's the biggest town in all of Massachusetts, if not New England.
By landmass, by landmass.
landmass.
And look, I mean, consider, too, that Plymouth's landmass included Sandwich and parts of Barnstable on Cape Cod.
Right,
I mean, Plymouth was a massive town, and it still is. In fact, I'll show you a graphic that we can put up online later on for the viewers that shows exactly how many towns, including Boston and its suburbs, fit inside the political jurisdiction of Plymouth. It's a vast town, which makes it complicated to achieve things like transportation, right?
Yeah.
But the fact remains, because of that too, I mean, you look at other cities our size, we have an amazing tree canopy. Other cities that I've ever lived and worked in, we're talking about reforestation and how to plant street trees and keep them viable. Plymouth doesn't have that problem. I mean, and because of that too, we have a very strong conservation tourism, and that can't be discounted. I mean, our natural environment is a big draw for a lot of people, especially in a place, I mean, when I was in Salem, I would oftentimes go hiking in the mountains in New Hampshire, and you'd be shocked to see how many large groups of Asian tourists were visiting New England, partly because parts of China, they broadcast images of the sun because you can't see it in the natural day.
Wow, isn't that wild?
Yeah, it is. So really hard, preserving our natural environment is a big focus for the foundation. And that's what gets us to marketing events and cultural assets.
It's funny you bring up like Asian people, foreigners who come, and I saw people taking pictures of squirrels.
Sure.
And that's the equivalent of them seeing a kangaroo when we go to Australia or something. Look, I haven't been to Australia, but that's what I would be taking pictures of.
And
have you?
I just actually just got back on my honeymoon in
really?
February. I was down there for 3 weeks. And just like we have deer crossing signs, they have kangaroo crossing signs.
Yeah.
They will jump, and they're not quite like deer, I understand, when they're startled. They don't freeze, they jump, and when they jump, they'll land on your car.
I would fear them just walking up and kicking your ass.
That happens.
Like that, I see that on. I don't know if you ever watch the show Modern Family.
Sure, yeah.
And the Phil Dunphy goes up to take a picture, gets punched in the face.
Aaron, you go.
And then, the notorious reputation of kangaroos who would box people back in the day of animal abuse or whatever. But
these animals are massive, and they have chests and arms like the best bodybuilders. They're intimidating. While I was there was a ring cam footage that was being broadcast on local news. It was an elderly gentleman. He was just going to his car, minding his business, and as he's keying into the car, you see a kangaroo hop in the background, turn, and then hop toward him and beat the ever-living God out of this man for no reason.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I was down in Nevis in the West Indies. We were doing something with the Four Seasons down there, and there would be monkeys everywhere. And we thought it was the coolest thing. And basically, it's squirrels upright, looking a little bit like a half-breed between a squirrel and a human being. Like, that's what they look like. And they were cute, and they were everywhere. But as we were taking pictures, at the same time, the town, the city, whatever government that was there were having meetings on what to do about this, because they were going into people's houses, stealing wallets and sunglasses and keys and pies, and because people would leave their windows open, and it was a nuisance.
Sure.
And so we did a little thing, and maybe I'll put the little clip up, is that we put a banana down with a GoPro camera, and we were backed up, and within 10 minutes there were 300 monkeys right there.
Fighting over this?
Going at the banana, looking at the camera and all this, but midway through, I'm like, they're going to take the camera. We had a little GoPro. I'm like, of course they're going to take it. And I was starting to get nervous. They didn't take the camera, luckily. But every area has their own little, and we even have, we'll talk about this in part 2, a Loch Ness Monster kind of situation. Well, hold on. I don't want to spoiler alert here. So I'm starting to get the shimmer out of our diamond here. I'm grinding up the coal here, and I'm making a diamond out of it. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll come back with more. We're talking Plymouth, we're talking business, we're having a good time here on Rock Talk from the Setting the Space outlet here at the Kingston Collection, the Octane Media, Plymouth Rock TV Media Center. We'll be back right after this.